see, you should be seeing the Community Interpreter International course description.
This is Patricia. I can see it.
Awesome.
This is Hope. I can see it.
And I can too.
And Nora, everybody.
Everybody can see it. Okay, everything's working great. That's awesome. So I'm just, got some information for you. Sorry, that's what I didn't want to have to happen to you guys, is for you to see all my my other work people looking for me. All right. So it's a 40-hour course. I mean, it's great that we've got a couple of people that have taken the course here and a couple of people that are interested in taking the course. It's pretty intense. It is 8 hours a day for 5 days. It is very interactive, I would say, lots of role playing. The lecturing part is very dynamic, not this kind of you're sitting around and getting really bored listening to someone talking. Our instructor, I'm going to go ahead and jump over to the next page. Giovanna Carriero Contreras is really just a ball of fire. Yes, is what I would say. Very dynamic and very knowledgeable. She is passionate about interpreting and language access and really has dedicated her life to this. She studied in Europe, then worked as a translator in the United States for a large software company, and then decided to start her own company. And she's very involved, if you're aware of, the ISO, International Standards Organization. And that's kind of the people that do all of these when you talk about certifications, and they develop all those standards and ensure the integrity of the profession itself. Okay, cool. So who's our audience? Who do we want to come to this course? I know that, like, intuitively, the first thing you think about is, oh, somebody has to be bilingual, right? And they're probably already contracting or working as interpreters or interested in joining the field, and that's a definite. Community interpreting is a new field in terms of its breadth. But if we think about most of the interpretation work in Wyoming, per se, it is community interpreting. There aren't these hard delineations between, if you're an interpreter, you're not going to make a living just working in the medical field. You're probably going to work with the schools. You're going to work with social services. I mean, Rana, you just were interpreting for the parent-teacher conferences last night or this week, right?
Right, yeah. And it was just kind of spur of the minute. The person, Anna, contacted me because she heard me interpreting at Vita. And she said, oh, you're quite good. Hey, would you be interested in doing this for the schools? I said, sure.
Oh, excellent. And, that's what we want to build, is that kind of network where you have a series of contacts and also a place where people can find them. But it goes across the whole gamut. I mean, particularly in Jackson, you don't know if you're going to be doing medical interpreting or law enforcement if you're at the hospital. You could, it goes from, I mean, it's silly. You're there for a dog bite, and all of a sudden the police officer walks in and he does not speak Spanish, or she, and they expect you to interpret for them during that visit. It's also important, though, as you help us to build an audience, because we want more people to participate in the training, that this is really valuable to people who work with interpreters as well as interpreters themselves. That it really creates a sensitivity to the profession and to the nuances and complexity of the profession, and also opens their mind with respect to language access services in general. A lot of times we tend to pigeonhole language access around translation and interpretation, and it's much more than that. It's really about having a comprehensive plan as an organization to address all those issues. So far, so good. I'm thinking you don't want to all listen to me all day.
No, so far so good.
So far, so good. All right. So specifically, the objectives of the course, you take a class, you're always going to have a list of learning objectives. So it starts off with understanding the interpreting profession, all the ethics protocols, and what performance assessment is or isn't. Then you start practicing different protocols and skills, position, where to stand, where to sit, what is a message transfer, memory and note taking. So all sorts of really great tips and tricks on how to be a better interpreter. There's an entire section regarding strategic mediation. Again, depending on the type of interpreting that you're doing, it's very different, the mediation that takes place in a medical environment or an education environment versus the legal environment. And and probably one of the things that I think is most valuable about this opportunity and to be in a course like this is the interaction and exchanges between the participants. Everybody's telling their stories about what they've experienced or haven't experienced and how they dealt with it, or asking questions about situations where they weren't quite sure what to do and if what they did was right or wrong or how they could have improved. And that's very, very valuable piece of the course. All right.
Yeah, for me, it was interesting because I felt like I was the only person who had worked in the tax field. A lot of it was dealing with healthcare.
Right, yeah. And Jackson, you're going to get, that's the...
Yeah. And so it seemed like a lot of the examples were dealing with healthcare issues. And I was going, but. So it was good. It was good for me to get out of my comfort space.
Yeah, but it's also good to bring that up with others so that the team, the other participants are exposed to these differences, right?
Yeah.
When you have people with different specializations, it makes for a really dynamic course. The first one we did in Jackson, there were people specifically in education, medical, and legal. So we had all three represented in that first course, and there was a lot of, oh no, we do this, oh you shouldn't do this, and we do that, and that interaction was very valuable.
Nice.
Yeah. So this is specifically the 5 modules. They are not aligned with any specific timing because there is a lot of discussion in the course, and if the discussion is going well or very inspiring, I would say, then you'll spend more time on it, and the instructor adjusts based on what the participants need and request. Mm-hmm. Okay. So we were talking about the course grading or what it means to have completed the course and the different levels of completion. So you don't have to do this if you don't want to. That's the other part. It's up to everyone if they want to take the test or not. But at the end of the course, you have a review of all the materials. It's really fun. You go through the whole, a lot of reminders about what's important and what will be on the test. And then you take this 2-hour test. A passing grade is a score of 80% on this test. The test is a combination of multiple choice, true, false, fill in the blank, and short answer questions. So you do have to demonstrate a little bit more comprehension than just your standard multiple choice test. That, in combination with the results of the language assessment, are what combined give you the level of completion that you receive.
Do you want to talk a little more about the language assessment?
Sure. I was going to do that next.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Very good. You want to tell them about the language assessment? It's pretty weird, isn't it?
For me, it was. No, you go ahead first, and I'll see if there's anything else I feel.
Yeah. So if the course we are working on, the course has received approval for continuing education units in the state of Colorado for different areas, law enforcement, some education requirements. And we're currently in the process of obtaining those for the state of Wyoming as well. So participants can earn CEUs, which are required for them to continue within their profession. In order to receive those CEUs, you have to take the test and you have to take the language assessment. The language assessments are interesting. They're both in your target and your native language. You have to show proficiency in both languages. The process that CHESCO or the International Interpreter, I'm sorry, the Community Interpreter International has adopted is a computerized ACTFL certified language assessment. If you've already taken an ACTFL language assessment recently, you can submit those results and opt out of the language assessment. Or if you have a master's degree from an accredited institution in either language, right? If you have them in both languages, then you can opt out of both of them. So if you attended a master's program in Colombia, I know, Nora, you did your master's here and in Colombia, right? You have two. I'm pretty sure you can get out of the.
Yes,
you are.
Sorry, I was looking for the button. Yes.
Yeah. You have one in the United States and you have one in Colombia, right?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
That's right. And you have taken the ACTFL. So she's done all three things. So she doesn't have to do the language assessments for this particular test. The language assessments are a separate process. And it's kind of a goofy process. You're talking to a computerized voice and you have to respond extemporaneously, which, some people are comfortable in that. It's kind of impromptu, right? It's like you're being put on the spot to present, right? As you're talking to a computer. And that organization then assesses your language skills and provides a rating of, I think it's superior, highly advanced, advanced, intermediate, and I don't remember the other one.
Novice.
Novice. There you go. Thank you. Okay. So this typically is a place where people have a lot of questions or misgivings. Nope.
So I have a question, not for me, but for maybe other people. What happens if you don't want to take the language assessments? Because, it's not because you don't want to, it's just maybe you're auditing the class or things like that.
Yeah, nothing happens. You pay for the course and you just get a certificate of participation, of attendance, that you were there. Okay. You won't get an assessment as qualified, professionally trained, or hospitality.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and for me, the language assessments were very odd. They give you the language assessments, but they ask you first kind of your interest in some broad topics. They give you some broad topics to choose from, and like gardening or current events, and I can't remember the other ones to choose from.
It's a lot. It was a lot.
There were a lot, yeah. And then this avatar, this mechanical person, asks you some questions, and you have a limited amount of time to, just as Cindy said, extemporaneously discuss, like 30 seconds to discuss these specific questions, respond to these specific questions about them. And the questions can really put you on the spot. Say, what do you think about agricultural situation in, Panama or something? You just go, whoa!
Yes.
Or the U.S. policy toward some country, and you go, oh my God. So it's it is really extemporaneous, and you do have a couple of opportunities to discuss it and refine your answers, but I found it pretty challenging.
So I put together after the first course, and I put together not a cheat sheet, but just kind of a helpful tips and tricks for the language assessment. I had the same experience, and so I pulled that together, and I think it will help everyone with respect to that. First suggestion is take your first language assessment, do it in the language that you feel more comfortable in, right? Second, select very few subjects that you're interested in from the list. I had the same thing happen to me. They were like, talk about something that happened recently with the paparazzi and la farandula, right? And I'm like, oh my God, I don't watch the TV and I don't read, people. What am I going to talk about? And so, but it was in English, so I felt comfortable answering. So, those things, limit your thing, and then use little things. You can there's criteria when you start out that they say that they're looking for, and so I've documented that criteria. And listen to the question the first time, and you can listen to it again. Listen to it the second time. When you listen to it the second time, take your notes. This is what I'm going to say, right? And then work off that. And so that helped me. But I had exactly the same experience you had, Rana. And I don't know, Patricia, how it went for you when you did the language assessment. How you felt?
Mine, I can remember one of my first questions, but see, they told me I had to pick 5, and I tried to just pick 2 or 3, and it wouldn't let me continue unless I picked 5. So that might have changed.
Mm-hmm.
But one of my questions was, for the Spanish part was, what do you think of the U.S. immigration policy as it stands now? And if you were the ambassador, how would you approach Congress and tell them your thoughts on immigration?
Oh my God.
Barely. And then the other one that I thought, oh, this is going to be simple, and I made it more difficult than what it was because I just finished being the ambassador, was tell me a time in your life that you experienced something new that gave you a sense of freedom, and what was it about it that just made your life more complete in participating in this event? And those were, I remember those two distinct questions.
Yeah. So it is tricky. It's the same system that the federal government uses to assess language skills. So it's designed for a mass volume, and I'm sure it's probably there's a computer evaluation that takes place on our responses, but I can't confirm or deny that.
I think Giovanna said that they had people evaluating them, but I'm not sure.
I think, you're right. It's people. There's 2 versions. So one, that's what I did as a court interpreter. So my evaluation was over the phone with another person. So those evaluators can also evaluate the one they have now over using a computer. So the final evaluator is a human.
Can I give a suggestion to those that are going to take it?
Please do.
This is Patricia. And on the language assessment, don't make it difficult. I think sometimes when we got in there, anyway, myself, I thought, okay, they're going to want to hear me speak this perfectly. I got to make sure all my conjugations are correct. And if I just would have just relaxed, I know how to conjugate. I know how to have a conversation. The thing of it is just have a conversation with the little icon, the little avatar. Just hold a conversation, relax. You're going to do it. Don't worry about, oh my gosh, this could be graded, this could be graded, this could be graded, because then you're going to start tripping yourself up. The more relaxed you can be and just say, I've got this, I know how to communicate. Let me just go ahead and communicate. You'll actually be more successful, I think.
Wow. Wow, I wish I had that advice. That's great. Because in conversation, it feels so much easier than doing that language assessment.
Right. And, you know, with me afterwards, after about the first two, I thought, well, wait a minute. All I need to do is just talk. I don't need to perform. And that's when I got more relaxed with it and was able, I've actually found myself being more comfortable answering my questions. Of course, as you're speaking, you're thinking, you know, the next thing that you're going to do. So what I found out helped for me is I just wrote one word little items on my paper when I was going to answer, so that I could look down and know this is how I was going to flow my conversation with the avatar.
Excellent. You can also have a glass of tequila, a shot of tequila.
That did help too.
Whatever works. Yeah. Well, if you try, that you were remembering to have fun, Patricia, right? Just enjoy the process.
It was just have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think of taking it as an exam. Think of it as just having a conversation. Telling somebody about who you are.
And I was also apprehensive about taking, being evaluated myself. And I had to let go of that. And, I was like, oh, why do I have to do this again? And then it makes sense. In order for this training and the certificate to be valid, there needs to be an assessment of proficiency and skills. All right.
So Cindy, if the assessment result is lower, I mean they don't reach advanced, what happens?
In your hospitality level.
So that will be for anybody, any kind of level? So even a novice could be there?
I apologize. I missed the question completely.
So if the assessment results, the rank is, let's say, intermediate,
mm-hmm.
They still get a certificate?
So I don't have, they don't release the specifics of the ranking. What I can tell you is that we do have people who participated in the courses in Jackson who did not earn a certificate, either because their language assessments were too low or they did not score an 80% on the test. So they only receive certificates of attendance.
Well,
they don't get the qualified professionally trained or hospitality title. Go ahead, Rana.
I'm sorry. If you do well on the test, the written test, and you pass the test with over 80%, but if your language proficiency ranks fairly low, you still can get hospitality level.
Right.
And then your certificates or your notification certificates come in an area that you're ranked on them. I think they're like average, excellent, superior. And so they have, and it will tell you in the narrative on the actual paper what kind of interpreting you can do and in what situations you would excel in.
Yeah. What you're qualified to do. Yeah.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah, you're still an interpreter. You're still a community interpreter.
Right. But even on the English side, they also rank you, and I don't remember the rankings. I can tell you I know excellent and superior in there, but I think the other ones are average and...
They're superior, advanced high, advanced mid, advanced low.
Right.
Those are the levels.
The levels are always the same, doesn't matter the language. The novice, intermediate, advanced, and superior are always the same for any kind of language. And within each of these, there's 3, that is low, medium, and high.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a necessary evil, I guess we can call it. There. But don't sweat it. That's very good advice, Patricia. Try and have fun. So I just want to share with you this really unique opportunity for the Casper training. The Office of Health Equity has dedicated some funds to it. The course is normally $680. That's just the cost of the course. Very reasonable, 5 days, 8 hours a day. The language proficiency assessments, those are $75 each. So you have to do one in each language. So that gives a grand total of $830.
That's much lower than our cost. That's a
Oh, I
lot.
don't know what 122 did. Not the 150. That part's definitely the same.
That is the same.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, ours were 200 for the language assessments, but the overall cost was, like, let's see, 900. It was well over. It was over 1,000.
Huh. Okay. I'm not affiliated with that when they
Yeah.
sponsor the training, but this is sponsored by the Office of Health Equity.
Okay.
And so these are the arrangements that have been made. And Lillian, I don't know if you want to, share, but there are grants or funding that has been associated so that the first 14 participants will receive a discount, or they'll get funded $100. Let's see if it's $610, $100, right, per person, Lillian?
It's 250 savings for the first until June for the first 14 people.
Okay, the 510 is total.
Right.
Okay, so very, this is a deal. It's a steal.
Yeah, it's a really good price.
It's a very, very, very good price. So Lillian's done a great job securing tin cupping around her office to her department to get some money in there for that.
I was a recipient, this is Patricia, I was a recipient of one of those scholarships that Lillian did, and then my employer helped pay the other part under staff development. So that's something that you can also look to see if your employer would help. But thanks, Lillian, that really helped me.
The
Yeah.
other thing,
Go ahead. I think you're going to talk about the workforce development grant.
yeah, sure, you can talk about that. Go ahead.
Well, you know more than me because you went through the process and actually did it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if there's anyone that's interested in that, but I know that Cindy worked hard to get us even a draft template so that all we had to do was put the information in pertaining to our county or our training dates. And so I think everyone's covered, I believe, right now because Casper, she lives right there. She doesn't have to travel.
Well, even so, the workforce development training funds are something are available through the the workforce development Department of Workforce Development and Services through the state of Wyoming, and this is available to every single employer and person in the state of Wyoming. It's a series of funds. It's distributed monthly. And you can, as an organization, receive up to $10,000 a year to train your team members, or as an individual, like a sole proprietorship, up to $2,000 a year. You have to complete an application process. They have to demonstrate how the course or seminar, whatever it is that you choose to use for continuing education, is valid and aligned with your field or profession. And they fund like almost 80%, up to 80% of the total value, including travel, lodging, etc. All of that can be put into the proposal. So I'm more than happy to help anyone who's interested, either your organization or you as an individual, as a sole proprietor, in applying for those funds and getting yourself set up.
Cindy, do you know if this is available for somebody that wants to start the profession or wants to start as an interpreter?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
You just have to be able to document that that you are a sole proprietorship or an LLC, you know, that you're a real entity. Make sense?
How do you prove that?
They want you to submit checks, stubs of clients that have paid you.
Oh, so if you don't have clients yet, then you can't. That was my question. If you want to start as an interpreter.
I don't know, you know, you fill out the application and how you word it, right, is important. The focus of this fund is to grow in many ways from like a startup perspective, is specific industries in Wyoming. But I wouldn't not try. Do you know what I mean, Nora? Like, it's very easy to talk to the people that are administering these funds, and they review the applications and manage the process. So, I mean, that's what I ended up having to do. I went through it, and I had several iterations going back and forth to finalize the whole process. But I think it's flexible. So I wouldn't say no to that. You'd have to talk to them for exceptions, right? How to document it. But they asked me to show that I was a working interpreter, that I had a business, and that I was expanding my growth in the business.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Your employers? I mean, yeah, having the employer fund it is ideal. We've definitely had a lot of that going on in Jackson. We've got a lot of support from the medical center here in sending people, and also the school board has sent quite a few people in the course. And the courts sent one person so far. Anything else regarding the fees? Any questions? Nope. Well, okay. We have some announcements to make regarding community outreach. We're pretty excited about that. In a joint venture, a partnership between the Wyoming Department of Health, Ms. Lillian Zuniga, and our WYNSLA, we have put together a series of webinars regarding titled Know Your Responsibilities. These webinars are, the audience are, no, what's Siri talking to me? Sorry. The target audience here is service providers, and service providers that are receiving what is known as FFA, Federal Financial Assistance. So anybody, basically, any organization or subcontractor, it doesn't matter if it's a private organization, a government entity, or a nonprofit, if they are receiving federal financial assistance, and that can come in the form of Medicare, Medicaid, loans, there's a whole gamut of things, they are required to provide language access services. So language access is a civil right. It is akin to the American with Disabilities Act, the ADA, in terms of the responsibility on the provider to ensure access. It's also the responsibility of the person, the client, receiver, to ask for these services, right? So we're really excited. We've got 3 one-hour webinars scheduled, and we're doing a massive campaign. Thank you very much, Nora, for all your help with the database and starting to pull all those names and email addresses and phone numbers and things together.
Sure.
To get the word out, because that's really the work here. People don't know that this is their responsibility. They don't understand that that this is a civil right, and we've got to get that word out to the community. And Ian was actually here in Jackson in, it was November. No, it was in November. November, December of 2018, and did some face-to-face meetings with the community here. And he's an excellent speaker. He is very, very knowledgeable with respect to all things civil rights, and in particular language access and how it applies from a health and human services perspective. And we really want you all to participate and also help us get the word out with respect to these webinars. It's very informative, very interactive. Rana, you did attend one of the face-to-face web seminars here in town, right?
I did, the one at Whole Grocer.
Yeah. Oh, and here they got free pizza. No virtual pizza here. What was your perspective?
He was really knowledgeable about, what was it, about healthcare, I think?
Health and Human Services.
Yes, thank you. Health and Human Services. People in other sectors had other questions, and he wasn't as knowledgeable about the other sectors, but he was great about Health and Human Services. And he certainly tried to answer everybody's questions.
And so it is a complicated, the way the Office for Civil Rights is organized within the federal government is pretty complicated. The Department of Justice has oversight for implementation and compliance with our civil rights as let's take it as the lead for the entire federal government, but then different branches of the government have their own divisions or offices for civil rights. So as I can use as an example for the Park Service, the National Park Service has an Office for Civil Rights within the National Park Service. The Forest Service, I believe, doesn't have it directly within their department. It's within the Department of the Interior.
It would be, God, I don't know. Well, we do have an Office of Civil Rights.
But not just for the Forest Service.
Right, but it's for the Department of Agriculture.
Agriculture, there you go. Okay. There you go, it's close.
You're good.
The parks are in the interior and the forests are in agriculture.
Right.
Is that the way it works? Okay.
Yeah, and there was somebody there from the schools who had some questions, and I think that kind of got stuck in the discussion, I believe.
Yeah, so you have to moderate those things. And the same thing, so the Department of Education has its own Office for Civil Rights as well.
This is Patricia. Will you be sending us some flyers on these?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, if I remember, sorry again. There was the lady, I think the woman from the schools was trying to ask questions about the press. Like the press, the local newspaper was asking questions and she was all concerned. And there was some kerfuffle that happened in the meeting. I can't remember what it was.
So it kind of got out of control.
He was kind of upset about something.
So it was really great. That was the school board administrator, chairman, president, director of our schools board for Teton County that attended. So that's, that was a really big win.
Yeah.
That someone at that level was concerned enough to make the time to join that conversation.
Absolutely.
And that's what we want. We just want to get the word out, and we want people to ask questions, and we're committed to answering those questions to the best of our ability. And if we don't know the answer, not like they always tell me in Miami, I'm not going to make it up. Lo que no sabes, lo inventas, right? We will go out there and get that. We're also working in parallel, so it's not here. We're trying to make connections with the Department of Justice. So it's the Attorney General's office at the state of Wyoming and at the state level, and we're also trying to connect with the state court system to get the word out and just let them know that there are all these resources available, and hopefully have a really good mix of people from representing different areas of interest in our ongoing trainings, and also from a wider geography in the state. And yes, Patricia, we will be sending out, you'll have access to this presentation, and we'll also be sending out the flyers once they're finalized. We're waiting on a couple of things to finalize the community interpreter flyer. Want to make sure everything's working perfectly. Nora's really good at checking all our web links and all the details.
But Lillian already has on her website. I just put that link on the group chat, so you can access that way as well the flyer for the webinars. So if you go there, you can download it, I suppose. There's a link, so you can do it that way as well.
Okay, so I'll be sending that out via the WYNSLA distribution list. And Patricia, I just got your application, I believe, today or to join our distribution list. And so you'll be receiving all this information, hope. We'd love to have you join our distribution list. I don't know if you're already there. I don't recognize the name, but if you...
Yes, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
If you can just pop your email in the chat as well.
Okay.
We'll add you to it and we'll send you some links for signing up. And you'll start to receive information regarding all of our meetings and anything that's of interest. There are, is it monthly? No, the HU Talks are every 2 months, Lillian, or quarterly?
They're quarterly.
So we share information regarding training opportunities and community outreach opportunities, things that are happening. We also have a Facebook group, which we'd love for you to join. And really, if any of you are interested in assisting us with our efforts, this is a real grassroots thing. We're doing our best to connect the interpreters and translators in the state of Wyoming. And I'm trying to think of what, we don't have we need a theme. That's probably our next big email campaign. Help us develop a theme for WYNSLA, right? And what we're trying to accomplish. But in the end, what we want is equity. We want everyone to have access to all of the services and rewards that come from access to those services, and all the benefits to our communities that come from being a more diverse and integrated community. Stop me now, Lillian, that's your speech.
I'm sorry, I was kind of having a coughing spell, so I didn't hear what you were saying at the end there.
Well, in the end, our end goal is equity, right? Equity and access.
Yes.
And improved outcomes, which is what comes from equity and access, right? Yes. A happier and healthier Wyoming.
Yes. Well said, Cindy.
I was really struggling, guys. I've been working since 3 o'clock in the morning, so but it's all good. And we really appreciate your participation here and want you to reach out to us in any way, shape, or form that we can be of service.
Yes, so thank you everyone for attending, and we hope to see you on the webinars if we don't meet before then.